Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a deeply relatable but honestly rarely talked about aspect of the spiritual journey. We're looking at a concept drawn from a fascinating article that asks a pretty confronting question. Are you stumbling over Jesus? Now, before you think, well, that doesn't apply to me, I want you to consider how it feels when your deepest spiritual expectations just aren't met. I mean, we've all had those moments, right? Moments where we felt completely let down, where a prayer seemed to literally bounce right off the ceiling, or a situation unfolded in a way that felt entirely unfair. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what happens in our minds and our spirits when God does something we simply don't understand. And more importantly, we'll look at how we can navigate through that without totally losing our footing. Okay, let's dive into this. Do things sometimes not work out the way we planned? Yeah, that is the understatement of the century. It's actually incredibly validating to acknowledge that disappointment is just a universal human experience, even for those with the absolute strongest faith. When we're waiting on a breakthrough or a healing or just a really specific answer to prayer and the exact opposite happens, it's completely natural to feel that sting of letdown. We map out our lives, we play by the rules, and we expect a certain outcome. But when the script flips, well, that disappointment can quietly morph into something far more dangerous if we aren't paying close attention. It can actually become a massive barrier in our relationship with the divine. To really understand how deep this goes, we have to look back at history. In Matthew 11, we find a quote from John the Baptist. Now, context is everything here. John the Baptist was the guy who literally announced Jesus to the world. He had heard the actual voice of God validating who Jesus was. But where is John when he asks this question? He's sitting in a dark, damp prison. He was expecting a conquering king to burst in and deliver him, but instead, he's just left in chains. So he sends a message asking, "Are you really the one, or should we look for someone else?" Think about that. Even this incredibly prominent biblical figure struggled. And Jesus replies with a profound statement at the end of that verse, "And blessed is he, whosoever shall not be offended in me." Jesus recognized that John was right on the verge of stumbling simply because his expectations weren't being met. Now, what's really interesting about this is the etymology behind that word offended. In the original Greek, the word used is scandalon, and it doesn't just mean getting your feelings hurt. It actually translates to a snare, a noose, or a trap. It means to be tripped up. When we take offense at God because things aren't going our way, we aren't just having a bad day. We are literally stepping into a trap. This scandalon is designed to ensnare us through annoyance or hurt. And once that trap snaps shut, we stop doing God's will and start relying purely on our own frustrations. It's a mechanism perfectly designed to pull us off our path completely. This brings us to a really critical crossroads with two very different paths. On one side, when we keep our focus on God, we access the ability to move mountains, calm storms, or, at the very least, find some peace while the storm rages around us. But on the other hand, being offended, actually stepping into that scandal and trap, acts as a massive roadblock. The author points out that harboring this offense literally stops blessings right in their tracks. It cuts us off from spiritual power, leaves our defenses totally down, and if left unchecked, it can actually destroy our destiny. You just can't simultaneously walk in spiritual power while holding on to a deep-seated offense against the very source of that power. So, how do we know if we've actually stepped into the trap? Well, there are clear spiritual and relational warning signs. If you find yourself suddenly withdrawing from fellowship with like-minded friends, yeah, that's a red flag. If you're experiencing sudden distrust, feelings of betrayal, or a long string of unanswered prayers, pay attention. The list goes on to include rebellion against spiritual teachings, creeping doubt, paralyzing fear, and just a general lack of faith. These aren't just random bad moods, guys. They are the active symptoms of scandalon. If you're checking multiple boxes on this list, it's a really strong indicator that an unmet expectation has quietly turned into an act of offense. Let's move along and see how this builds, because it doesn't just stay in the spiritual realm. What starts in the mind eventually ravages the body. Step 1 is resentment. It sneaks in and steals your joy and your peace of mind. But resentment doesn't just sit still, it ferments. That takes us to step 2, deep-rooted bitterness. And here's where it gets incredibly serious, leading right into step 3. The author notes that this bitterness possesses a self-destructive power that physically breaks you down. We're talking tangible, medical symptoms here: profound fatigue, chronic backaches, ulcers, even high blood pressure. Holding on to a spiritual offense literally makes you sick. It's like drinking poison and hoping the other person, or in this case, God, will die.
Now, this takes on an even greater urgency when we contextualize it. The author draws on a prophetic warning from Matthew 24:10, highlighting a very specific danger of the last days. The text warns that many will be offended, betray one another, and hate one another. But the ultimate danger highlighted here isn't just interpersonal conflict. It's becoming offended at the Creator himself and what he is doing. In complex, totally unprecedented times, God's actions or apparent inactions will deeply test our ability to understand. We're going to see things we just don't comprehend, and the temptation to fall into the Skandalan trap will be higher than ever before.
But good news, there is an antidote, and it's not just trying harder, and it's definitely not pretending you aren't hurt. Consider this incredibly beautiful insight from 1 John. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear. The author identifies this as the ultimate, singular cure for offense, perfect love. You see, when we're offended, we're usually operating out of fear. Fear that we've been abandoned, fear that our needs won't be met, or fear that we're suffering for absolutely nothing. But a genuine, deeply rooted love casts that torment aside. Love becomes the stabilizing force when our understanding completely fails us. And this brilliantly illustrates a point made by the Apostle Paul. Out of all the spiritual gifts, out of prophecy, knowledge, and even mountain-moving faith, he reduces what truly matters down to just 3 things: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. Because without a true, undying, and genuine love for the Creator, we are incredibly vulnerable. When things don't go our way, our faith might waver a bit, and our hope might dim. But if that foundational love is missing, we are prime candidates for apostasy. We will trip right over that stumbling block. Love is the tether that keeps us connected when the storm is raging and absolutely nothing makes sense.
So what does this actually look like in practice? How do we apply this love when we are genuinely furious? Well, the author shares a highly relatable, incredibly vulnerable anecdote. She admits to facing intense disappointment, feeling outright betrayed when urgent prayers weren't answered. She admits she became bitter and fell into deep anxiety. But instead of just walking away, she did something crucial. She threw a pity party, but she threw it in the right direction. She took her intense frustrations, her anger, and her bitterness directly to God in raw, honest prayer. She literally poured it all out, a rant, a spiritual tantrum. Because the truth is, the Creator of the universe is absolutely big enough to handle our emotions. And the response she got? After letting out all her grumblings and completely exhausting her frustration, she heard a really simple, gentle question in her spirit. Are you finished now? I mean, it's totally unexpected and honestly kind of humorous. It proves that God isn't intimidated by our anger. He let her get it all out, kind of like a parent letting a toddler finish a tantrum on the living room floor. He heard her, he cared, and he responded. Now, her situation didn't instantly change, but her attitude sure did. Because she communicated honestly, her love triumphed, and she completely avoided the trap of the scandalon. So the crucial point here gives us a clear antidote in action. First, pour out your frustrations to him. Don't hide them, definitely don't suppress them, and please don't vent them exclusively to other people while ignoring the source. Second, trust him completely, even when the roadmap makes literally 0 sense. And third, let love triumph over the stumbling block. Listen, it is perfectly okay to not understand everything. It is absolutely okay to be hurt. But we have to lay those unmet expectations down and choose to maintain that relationship of love regardless of our circumstances. Which leaves us with this introspective final question. Are you on course? Or have you allowed a disappointment, an unanswered prayer, or just a moment of confusion to become a skandalan, a trap that has tripped you up? Take a moment today to really check your heart for those warning signs we discussed. Let go of the offense, throw your pity party if you need to, but get back on track. This insightful framework comes from the work of Lisa Basinger. If you want to dive deeper, you can read her original article on our website. A link to the article can be found right down in the description of this explainer. Thank you so much for joining us on The Explainer. Keep learning, keep growing, and we will catch you next time.